Chapter 14. Educating Olive. Dogs love to be trained, or at least to play a game that challenges whatever brain cells they might possess. They are very willing to learn, but the trouble is that they don't get bored with the process quite as quickly as we might. We had also been reliably informed that dogs, or certainly Labradors, are desperate to please their owners, and that this can be used very effectively in training. But with my experience of labs now, I believe there is a clear hierarchy in their heads of what is most important. 1. Food. 2. Food. 3. Food. 4. Also food. 5. Human approval. And I'm not even sure that human approval should be as high as number 5. Quite quickly we realised that receiving our gratitude and being told that she was a very good girl came pretty low down the list of priorities, and we ended up instead relying on Olive's overwhelming greed to do the training for us. Here's a good trick if you have a Labrador. Actually, trick does it a disservice. It is a recognised training aid. When they're young, every time they're eating a meal, you blow a whistle, short and sharp, over and over again throughout the whole dining experience. Perhaps Olive felt that I was like a one-note version of the guitarist in a hokey restaurant who sidles up to the table just as you're enjoying your starter. But the results were devastatingly effective. Subsequently, any time on a walk where Olive's concentration drifted to some other matter or she wandered off, there was a solemn nod from me to Caroline and the nuclear option was taken. A few blasts on the whistle and she would lift her head from whatever she'd been doing, eating grass, eating sticks, eating a child's apple and fingers, and come sprinting to us as if her life depended on it. All for a tiny morsel of training treat, and because we had conditioned her brain like evil geniuses. Yet this was a minor triumph in a battle of wills. Olive has long since won the war. It's mostly our fault for training her in a rather half-hearted way, or abandoning it when we thought we had it cracked. Labradors are some of the most trainable dogs you'll find, but you still have to work at it. We only did a bit, and as a result Olive will obey us, but only when she decides that it's in her own interests. We finally signed the Treaty of Surrender when, after 2 years of existing beneath us, staying in her bed or on the floor, she very nonchalantly one evening hopped up alongside Caroline on the sofa, with a look that said, "This is happening, get used to it." It was a moment of huge physical and metaphorical significance. She had risen to our level, brazenly suggesting that she was now equal to us in standing. The next move would be crucial, and the absolutely correct thing to do was to briskly shoo her back down to the floor with a scolding word. It might sound unkind, but it had to be done if we were to maintain order, discipline, and whatever dwindling respect she had for us. Instead, they both settled down to watch Coronation Street. But I think now it is perhaps that willfulness that I like most about Olive. I don't really want a dog which has been utterly conditioned by us, submissive and bent to our will by rigorous training. Yes, I'd like her to come back a bit more promptly, or indeed at all, when I get frustrated with her grazing on a walk, but I wouldn't change it. Perhaps I love her personality because it seems not a million miles from my own. She could certainly be considered cheerier, but she also has her moments of saying, "I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to. Life's too short." And in her case, she would have a stronger argument. The well-known phrase is that dogs look like their owners, but in our case, it's more that we occasionally appear to have a similar outlook on life. I'm well aware that I may be reading a bit too much into it and seeing things only because I want to, but there is certainly a strong connection. Within the first few months of collecting her, I'd become totally besotted. Of course I'd loved all the dogs I'd known before, but because Olive was completely our dog, our decision, our choice, from when she was a glint in her father Henry's eye to returning home with her and living every moment of every growing phase, the bond was far greater. There was, though, one growing phase still to complete. Again, it varies from breed to breed, but to play it safe with still-forming joints, black Labradors shouldn't be taken on truly arduous walks until they're about 18 months old. You build them up very slowly, as we did with Olive. Since leaving her native Devon, she had done plenty of things and seen some sights, walking, swimming, eating, walking a bit further, and eating a bit more, leaving nothing unsniffed or unchewed within a few miles of our house. But now she was ready, and it was time to expand those horizons. It was time to head for the hills.